Since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to Lion Tales, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Dr. Lynnda Nadien, along with Aurora Workman, and our guest today is Corinne Graham, president of Graham International Consulting and Research that specializes in strategies for small business growth, development, research, and training. Dr. Graham has worked with and trained thousands of individuals ranging in ages 14 to 74, gamers, millennials, X-Yers, boomers, and is often complimented on being real, relatable, and motivational. Tell us about your mentorship programs.
So I do have a couple of different roles, and while not trying to plug too many things, one of them is I'm the chair for the Long Island Advancement for Small Businesses, and it focuses on that. That being said, I run a monthly women's group that focuses on leadership and personal and professional development. My focus is always on personal professional because that helps in terms of core and where you're going and your career. I also do, I have mentees, that I sign on from time to time. I also am one of a mentor for the WeNYC, which is New York City through the SBS Small Business Services, and that's about helping women get started in their business, or if they're in business, scaling. So those are the two main roles in terms of, I would say, in terms of mentorship that I...
And can you tell us about the CPD model and what CPD stands for, and how did you develop that model?
So my research was pretty interested. I was excited about it for my distance role.
Right? We have it correct.
CPD?
CDP, right?
CDP. That's correct.
CDP. Okay,
CDP. So what I did, my research was discovering using an emerging grounded theory sorts of methodology to look at cultural diversity and profitability. So it's the Graham CDP model, and really that's just the framework of that is telling you really how, before I talked about core, where does something start, where should you be looking at, and what emerged, and the themes that emerged, and they're common day-to-day things. So that's what the model is. It looks at that. If you implement that, if you use it, you should be able to gauge really how your business, what you need to do, and how you need to change to be able to be profitable or successful.
And again, CDP stands for?
Cultural diversity, profitability.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of businesses, so if I'm a business and I'm a bigger business and I want, what would I use this model to help me do?
Well, it's, as I said, it's back to basic of looking at where the starting point is. It's like taking, I have the design is like a house, right? And you start step and you tier to where you need to go. History, then you talk about economics, and you just move it along. Then what is it you need to be competitive? What do you need to then do? Education. From education, what else do you need to do? Probably learn technology. You need to adapt and that sort of stuff. So it's very focused on things that companies are doing, but not necessarily doing effectively. And I think that's where that model comes into place. It looks at culture, diversity, and how it impacts profitability.
Are there sometimes situations where startup companies or people that are getting ready to do something in small business are refusing to take that good advice at the beginning because they have their goals and ideas in their mind what it would be like, but it may not be able to come to fruition the way that they would want it to?
I think the thing with small businesses, they're a lot more nimble. So even with mid-sized and larger companies, they don't have that flexibility. So small businesses, even though they're not doing it as aggressively as they need to, they're quick to be able to integrate this. They know about how to integrate, a strategic partnership because they're starting. They need to grow. You need to align with all the individuals or the resources that's going to get you to the next level. And then the larger mid-sized company comes and pick them off if they're doing pretty well to gain revenue share. So I would say that they are more tuned to it. It's smaller, so it's easier for them to manage. On the bigger scale, they miss a couple of the pieces because there's no oversight or overview, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
So tell us about your liaison roles with other universities and...
So I currently am one of the liaison with the Stony Brook University, actually starting with the University of the West Indies, the Mona campus, mostly focusing on sustainability, energy efficiency, conservation. So a lot of the science and tech comes into play. So some collaboration with Stony Brook and as well with Farmingdale State College, and in terms of energy and that sort of stuff. So they also, SUNY and the University of the West Indies actually has a collaborative where they have an institute in the city. It's relatively new. I think it's probably going in at its second year. So,
and are you trying to recruit women for that type of learning environment?
So I'm not recruiting. I think part of the focus is I think they have this. Forgive me, I'm going to use the acronym, but I'm not sure. C3E, where they focus on wanting to get more women in that field. When I work, obviously, I'm going to look to promote and get women who are interested in this. So it's mentorship, it's exchange of resources, working on shared technology to help to scale to bring it. For example, there are things like we have a side project. We had a fuel cell technology that has ready use. We have a transportable battery unit that helps in terms of the light goes off or if you need water and that sort of stuff. So there are many different aspects to these programs, and then professional or personal or workforce development program comes out of them.
Thank you for sharing that. You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Aurora Workman, along with Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Dr. Corinne Graham, a small business specialist with nearly 2 decades of experience across a diverse spectrum of businesses, and a highly accomplished speaker, trainer, and management consultant to small and startup businesses, and a proud alumni of Nassau Community College. So, Corinne, tell us again, you dropped about an upcoming book on diversity and profitability. Can you tell us something about that?
So, the focus of the research is there. So now I think every time I see something about cultural diversity or culture diversity and profitability, it seems odd that it's still not enough material for individuals to go. So what I'm going to try to do is take the dissertation, which was recommended to me a couple of years ago when I finally finished, to do exactly that. Make it into something where the general public have access to it and can read and be informed to look at it. Maybe it's new. Maybe it's a different way of looking at that. To understand the importance of it, because both of them allow companies to be profitable and to be successful, and it's key. Those key relationship, you'll see, someone does something a certain way. How do you define culture? How do you define diversity? How is your team set up? What do they bring to the table? How do you make that 1 + 1 = 3 or whatever that possibility is, right? The mathematicians will say, no, 1 + 1. No, but if you change the formula at the top, square something, the possibilities are mindless, right?
And so many times when we actually make define those words, cultural or diversity. What are we really talking about? Does it include women? Under the umbrella of diversity? How are we ranking? Is it men, then women, then children, or what are we really saying? Because now we see in the world how everyone is sort of in a category where we thought over the years we were sort of coming out of that. And we didn't want to pigeonhole and stereotype, but I think we almost are moving back toward that, and something that we want to, stay away from with education and making sure that everyone has a voice, but we're not separated by gender and race and culture.
Which is correct. Like the premise of this is just setting itself up for other insight to come in, but this really is like just core stuff. One particular company in the book started their company with like $10,000. In like 5 years, there were a couple millions of dollars and sold. They were bought out by this major company, and that's because they had a handle on maximizing diversity and culture. Culture is not just, in terms of a country or so on. There's a family culture. There's a school culture. There's a community. It's very broad, and I think back to the point of understanding what does each person bring, that can be a strategic advantage.
And when you talk about building the culture, how does that include the trust issue? Because there's a lot of research on trust in communities and trust in schools, and now you're bringing it into a small business. How would you build that trust as a new, entrepreneurial type of a person?
I don't think it's that much of a rocket science. What's your mission? What's your vision? And it has to be clear. And you have to be able to know, like, and trust. That transparency has to be there. And again, remember we're talking about, I was saying, you kind of have to understand so you don't become judgmental. And I think we're forced as small businesses to work with a lot of different individuals, a lot of different areas, so we become sort of infused with what's going on within the communities. And if we're doing it, again, this is where also having someone who's looking to, this is a research part of it, becoming strategic about how can I change my business model if I'm not doing something very well, to make sure that I don't have that same old way of thinking, that strategy isn't working. I need to become, a little bit more up to date.
Very interesting. And I think it also helps, too, to make sure that, people have that vision at the beginning. It's hard to explain, like, the difference even between a mission and a vision, because people are sort of, need to have two definitions of both of those as well.
But, one is the overall, the feel good, what's the ethical thing to do, and one's, where you're looking to go. And it's simple. Look at the companies that you like. If it's Starbucks or Amazon, what do they see? How nice and easy is it? Don't make it too long. And I think, sometimes you have to go back and reinvent the wheel with that. I remember when I was doing my doctoral study, one part of, or research, I'm going to use the company Disney, they weren't doing so great because the CEOs lost sight of the mission, the vision that, he originally had. And then once they go ahead and, change that, they started to do well again.
We'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Corinne Graham, president of Graham International Consulting and Research, that specializes in strategies for small business growth and development, research and training, and a proud alumni of Nassau Community College. So, how can our audience contact you?
Website, grahamconsultingandresearch.com, or you can Google Dr. Corinne Graham. You'll find me LinkedIn and Facebook.
We want to thank you for being with us. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, along with my fabulous friend Aurora Workman, president of the Nassau Community College Alumni Association. The creative director of Lion Tales is Rudy J. Breedy. This show is a production of the NCC Alumni Association. Visit ncc.edu/WHPC for more information. Available as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. Lion Tales is powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Stay tuned for the news wrap-up. We'll talk to you next week.